Hey everybody, this is Keith Ciaramello. I'd like to welcome you to Photoshop Basics for Tattoo Artists. So I've been asked a lot about Photoshop thanks to the success of my first DVD, Keep It Real. Hopefully you guys have it. It's about color portraiture and I touch on Photoshop a little bit, what I do to prepare references and stencils very briefly in that DVD. And it prompted a lot of emails about Photoshop, and I know Photoshop is a tool a lot of tattoo artists use, and a lot of new tattoo artists want to use, and a lot of tattoo artists who've been around for years and know nothing about Photoshop really want to start using Photoshop because they see the advantages in so many ways, how they can utilize it for their tattooing, their promotional material, painting digitally and drawing digitally, creation of Flash. I mean, it's just an endless list of things you can do with Photoshop. So let's get started. The first thing is, who is this DVD intended for? We just touched on that a little bit. Tattoo artists who want to incorporate Photoshop into their daily workflow. Like I said, it's such a deep program, but there's so many things that we as tattoo artists can do with Photoshop to just make our job easier, whether it's prep work for tattoos, whether it's enhancing photo references. I'm going to put up a list a little bit later of the things we're going to cover, but it's not about where you are as a tattoo artist. It's really about where you are with Photoshop, and we're assuming you've bought a basics DVD. You're pretty much a basic to kind of intermediate user, and we're going to cover very tattoo specific tasks, so you could really see, you know, why Photoshop. I'm a tattoo artist, you know, how can I use it, and how can I incorporate it into my job. And I think by the end of this DVD you're going to have endless answers to that question, and you're also going to see how you can create your own original artwork with Photoshop. I'm going to give you some basic techniques for drawing and painting, and also some techniques for maybe coloring pre-existing line work you have sitting around for Flash or what have you. So we've got a lot to cover. Will I learn everything there is to know about using Photoshop on this DVD? Let's think for a minute. Nope. Photoshop's a really deep program, really deep. Just the the dozen or so bullet points that I'm going to cover in the DVD, it's going to take quite a while to do, and you're going to have a ton of information when we're done to take and run with. So but also, before the end of the DVD, either on the DVD or on the insert of the DVD or in the closing credits, I'm going to list some of my favorite resources for learning more about Photoshop and becoming, you know, what they call a power user. If you want to be a power user of Photoshop, I'm going to tell you about some DVDs, some magazines, some websites you might want to dig deeper. And I'm sure I'll be mentioning things along the way as we do the DVD. Those of you who have my portrait DVD know that I'm just going to ramble through this whole DVD, so plenty of information hopefully by the time we're done here. Well, what will I learn from this DVD? Well, that's a good question. Let's find out. Okay, so some of the topics we're going to cover on the DVD are resolution, scale, vector images versus bitmap images, and some rules of thumb about all of that. I'm sure right away some of you may not know what a vector image is, what a bitmap image is. Don't worry, we're going to cover all of those things, and you're going to know. And you're going to know why and when and how to use those things. And I'm tempted to get into detail now, but we'll get into detail later. But most importantly, you're going to learn you need to really base what you do on the end result. What do you want to do with your Photoshop file? Are you going to print it? Are you going to put it on the web? Or are you going to do everything with it? Do you want to print it, put it on the web, and have multiple uses for it? And in that case, we do what I would call you work biggest first. You always want to go with the highest resolution and work at the highest resolution possible. High res for print would be 300 dpi at actual size. We'll get into more about that later. And then you would scale everything down from there for web, and if you're going to make like an iPhone app or an image for your website or so on and so forth. Again, we'll get into detail later. You're going to learn the basic toolbar tools and their functions. We are not going to cover every single toolbar tool and every nested tool that's inside of a tool. Like I said, I mean, it's such a deep program. We're going to just give you the basics, hence the title, that you can use to help your job be easier and more efficient and more fun as a tattoo artist. Again, you know, keep the title in mind, Photoshop Basics for Tattoo Artists. I'm not going to be able to resist the temptation to go as deep as possible, but keeping in mind the whole time, Photoshop Basics for Tattoo Artists. So let's both try and do that. It's not going to be easy. Basic layer tools. The blending modes for the layers, the effects, how to utilize the different layers for different techniques. Right now I'm using the layers to do this little presentation. I'm kind of sliding a layer, almost like sliding a piece of paper over the items as I reveal them, and there's text layers and layers that just have the imagery on them. But we're going to go through the layers palette and the different functions in the layers palette. All of them? No. But the basic ones, the ones that'll be important to you as an artist. Selections and masks, channels and path basics, the different methods of making selections, making masks, the functions of channels, which is really just another name for selections, really, and paths. Paths are something that are underused, but we're going to touch on them. They utilize the pen tool. It's a way of making very precise linear selections. Something great to know. And path skills are going to translate over to Illustrator, which I plan on releasing a DVD about hopefully next year. Basic image adjustments, including color, brightness, contrast, and levels. We're going to maybe go into more than that, but those are the ones you guys really need to know about, again, for tattooing. A brief overview of filters. I'm not heavily into filters, but you're going to see we're going to go over certain filters that are useful, again, as tattoo artists. Some of filters can be used to help you prepare stencils, to get clarity in images, you know, such as sharpening filters and unsharp masks and such. But we'll touch on those. Digital stenciling tricks and techniques. Well, that pretty much says what it says. We're going to get into some of the ways that we can use Photoshop to actually help us make our tattoo stencils. Sometimes you can literally make your entire stencil in Photoshop, print it out, photocopy it, run it through the thermograph machine, and have a great stencil. And I'll show you a few ways you can do that. Other times, I'll really just use it to get a better source for my handmade stencil, because I still really prefer to make a handmade stencil. I don't even run things through the thermograph machine very often. I like to put my source material down on top of the thermograph paper and press through, as those of you who have the Keep It Real DVD know, and it's a common technique many people use. It's just easier to see than using tracing paper or the light table or what have you. But there are definitely some cool tricks and some cool techniques that you can use to make stenciling a more pleasant experience. Color sampling from your references for tattooing and painting. That's one you're going to have to kind of see to understand, but I've gotten into a new way of taking a picture, and what I'll do is I'll eye drop certain key colors and then make little chips, almost like you'd see at the paint store, whether they're in circles or squares or whatever. And putting them on the outskirts of the painting. I'm going to show some examples of that. One from a painting I'm working on, and another from a tattoo that I'm working on. They actually have proven really helpful. They help me pick out ink colors when I'm tattooing, what caps I should load up, and with painting, again, it helps me lay out my palette, especially if I'm working in oil and the paint's going to stay wet and I can pre-mix my color. It's nice to kind of have a palette in mind and lay it out right there. And then when you get to the painting stage, it's almost just like plugging it in and it works. That's if you're working from photo reference, obviously. Enhancing, speaking of photo references, enhancing your photo references for the best tattooing results. Again, something touched on in Keep It Real. You see me take the Andre the Giant photo that was a scanned photo from a book, do some color correcting on it, do some dodging, some burning, things to bring out detail and adjust color temperature with the tattoo in mind, with the end result of the tattoo in mind. And we'll get into a little more detail about that here. Maybe I'll even just use the Andre again. I don't know. I'm playing it by ear right now. Other than this outline, I have nothing pre-planned, so we like to just roll with it. But you're going to learn all these things. Comping tattoos and cover-ups on body photography and tracing or tracings of clients. Okay, well, I butchered that sentence, but the point is, we're going to comp tattoos. First of all, we're going to comp them on photos of your customer's body. And this is extremely helpful if the customer has pre-existing tattoos that you need to work around. But it's also great on blank body parts. And you can make your own arm, leg, chest, back templates too if you just want to practice sketching on body parts and get yourself out of that rectangular frame of mind. And you know, again, I think one of the greatest examples of this, or one of the greatest proponents of this, I should say, is Guy Aitchison, and what he provides in his book and on his website. If you're a member of the website, you can get those templates. But you know, you'll get through this, you'll be able to make your own templates, and you can make them for different types: skinny arms, fat arms, female arms, male arms, legs, bodies, what have you. So anyway, and then this, I know a lot of people are interested in this, and I'm definitely going to touch on this. Some digital painting and drawing techniques for beginners. We're going to look at two or three different techniques that people commonly use to paint fine art-ish style in Photoshop and Sketch. And we're also going to look at just coloring some line art, more traditional, for lack of a better word. Like if you have some line art laying around that you've been trying to color to produce your own more traditional flash, I'm going to show you how to take your line art into Photoshop and color it kind of quickly and easily. That'll be more like what it's like to color a very simple, again, a very basic rundown of what it's like to color comic book line art or flash line art. And then the other stuff will be really more like simulating painting, like painting with oil or acrylic or airbrush. But I want to give you enough of a basic foundation to start having fun and making some paintings and drawings digitally. It's a great practicing ground for people who plan on painting traditionally. And for me, I mean, a lot of times it's something I learned from one of my mentors, Dave DeVries. I'll get stuck at a point in a painting, especially when I was working in acrylic and mixed media. And what I would do is I would take the painting, scan the painting, come into Photoshop, and then I could monkey around with the painting and not be destructive to the painting, and then print out the end result, tack it next to my easel, and back at the painting with any breakthroughs I may have come up with in Photoshop. So pretty cool.